Trigger warning, please be advised that this episode discusses topics around animal mutilation and animal death.
They were like, well, how did you do that? And Doug and Dave were like, duh, we pole vaulted into the field. And he said, so to quote him, he said in an interview, "You should have seen us running through the fields with our sticks, sailing over the corn." It just reminds me of that Theresa May interview of like running through the fields of wheat. Hello and welcome back to the 14th episode of Spooky and Kooky.
If you're into anything paranormal, a little bit spooky, a little bit kooky, little conspiracy theory, this is the place for you.
Yeah, do you hate it when you bring something up that's spooky, kooky, paranormal, conspiracy, and people give you that look?
The eye roll.
Yeah, it doesn't happen here. So it's a safe space, we always say, for anyone who's into that sort of stuff and want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Without judgment. There's no judgment here.
We just get right into it. No
Yeah. So today's going to be another alien episode. We're going to go into crop circle and cattle mutilations.
Yeah, I think we couldn't really do it all in one, couldn't do it justice, could we? So
No.
still a little bit about Investigation Alien and then your bits about the crop circles.
Yes, and I'll jump right into it. So I've got a little story for you to begin with to ease us in. So in 1678 in Hertfordshire, England, a farmer had a field of oats ready to be harvested. And in this time, mowing was quite a skilled job. You needed to get someone in to do it. So he met with a freelance mower to discuss prices, discuss the business, to see if he could do the job. And the mower gave him a ridiculously high price and he'd never paid that before. So the farmer got quite angry and he sent the man on his way with the parting words, "The devil shall mow it rather than thee." So that night, a strange light was seen over the field as if the whole of his crop was on fire. And the man was actually so terrified, the farmer, that he didn't want to go out of his house and investigate it. So he didn't go out till the next morning. And when he went out in the next morning, the crop wasn't burnt, but it was harvested and neatly stacked. And what was left in the crop was perfectly round circles. So again, he was terrified about this. He thought the devil had actually done it.
I feel like that's a weird kind of revenge to give me a hand and neatly stack it all.
But because he thought it was from the devil, because he had said that,
Yeah.
he was like, "I'm not moving any of this crop, I'm not selling it." So he just abandoned it. He didn't want anything to do with it.
When was this?
In 1678.
Oh, okay.
So this story actually came out in, I think it was like either a pamphlet or a newspaper, whatever it was, and it was called The Mowing Devil. And I've got a picture, which is just the newspaper.
The devil just doing his gardening.
They've got a little illustration there. So
He needs to get himself one of those ride-on mowers.
So, yeah. Made the job a lot easier for him. We don't obviously know what happened with that one. I'm not suggesting that one was done by aliens, but we don't even know if it was a crop circle. It was just a bit odd, and I thought it's a good way to ease us in. And it's a good way to show that these things have been happening. Odd occurrences has been happening for quite some time. So crop circles are like patterns in the crop that appear seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of debate what causes them. They're actually most commonly found in the south of England, which I didn't know. I know.
Out of the whole world?
Yeah, I've never seen one. I'm livid about it. However, they have been found in over 60 countries on every continent. So even though they commonly occur in the south of England, they're all over. They are usually geometric shapes that you can see from the sky. Mm-hmm. You can obviously see them when you're in the crop, but you can't make out the pattern until you're up above in the sky. And there are many different designs of crop circles, and some are simple, but some are extremely intricate patterns, often representing fractals in mathematics. A fractal is a geometric shape that repeats itself at different scales, creating a pattern that is infinitely complex. Some circles are extremely precise, and the geometrics are all properly aligned. And I've got a crop circle to show you, and obviously we'll put it up here, but just so the girls can see. This one actually represents the first 10 digits of pi. So people who are into maths looked at it and said, if you... something to do with the distance between each line,
Right.
and there's like dots in there which would represent the decimal places. Someone, a mathematician looked at it, or someone who's into that sort of thing, saw it and was like, oh, that's the first 10 digits of pi. And I thought, how on earth did you get that from that? But I've got this picture because it shows the diagram of how they worked it out. I still don't understand it personally, but I trust their judgment a lot better than mine, that they would know that that's...
Whereas
pi.
for me, that second one reminds me of, did you ever have when you were little, that like spiral thing where you put the pen in? Into like, did you ever have that, Liv? And it goes round and it's like, and it makes the pen.
So these are just ones that I added because they're examples of fractal patterns.
Yeah, that's what reminds me of it.
Yeah, if you type in fractal patterns into Google, these patterns come up. I don't understand the fractal patterns again, but a lot are seen in crop circles.
Interesting.
So, obviously, we're talking about this on an alien episode, so there's going to be an alien connection that I'm going to bring in. But there are a debate of what causes these crop circles, and some common theories include animals running in a circle, pushing the crop down. And it, like, obviously we'll put these pictures up, but you've just seen those pictures.
Yeah, that's pretty specialist. But why can't we just be unbiased? We really struggle. We try so hard.
It's just so stupid that it would be animals. When you see the intricate ones, George, even the non-intricate ones that are so geometrically aligned, you think, well, this isn't cattle running around a field. One even said flying round. And I thought, how on earth does that push the crop down? You're reaching. So one is animals, another is wind patterns and freak tornadoes. Liv's looking at me with sceptical eyes.
It's because we all know it's the aliens. Come on.
Another theory is electromagnetic energy, which is force of energy from the land causing the crop to fall. I don't know if that happens, but if it does happen, I don't see why it would cause those shapes. There might be an explanation for it, and if there is, drop it down in the comments, because I'm open to everything. But just personally, I don't understand any three of those theories. I think they're absolutely cock and bull.
For it to be that symmetrical and precise.
And purposeful.
Imagine if it was a person doing it and then people were like, oh, it's the animals. They're like, this literally took me so long to do. And you're going to come out here and say that some animals are trampling.
Yeah. So... many believe it is simply the work of humans, and this kind of comes from 1991, because before 1991, a lot of people did think this is not the work of wind, it's not the work of animals, it's not the work of humans, it's too precise, it's got to be aliens. And a lot of people believe that, even people who are sceptics believed that it was aliens. But in 1991, a news story about two men from Southampton... we're in the thick of all this, and I had no idea. I know we weren't born in 1991, but...
yeah, but still. How are we in alien territory and not even know about it?
I know. There are some that's been really close to us as well, which I'll go into, some really important ones.
Because do you know what? On the last episode, when I was doing the research for it, I said to Rich, I was like, I think aliens have ever been to the UK.
Oh, they have?
I know, but... at the time, I was just like, I can't think of one time.
Yeah.
they might have visited here. I don't know for what purpose they might come here. And then
I just realised when I go off script, I bring out my true feelings. So without missing a beat, with so much chest, I was like, oh, Stonehenge, they've been here before.
Of course they've been here before.
Oh, I need to stick to my script. The unbiased script.
But yeah, I just can't believe that we're amidst so much.
And yeah, I just, yeah. So these men were from Southampton. They were called Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. And the newspaper article, I think the headline was "The Two Men That Conned the World." And Doug and Dave basically said they had pranked everyone by using a plank of wood, tied 2 strings to the end of it, and they would go around holding the strings and pushing the crop down.
Right.
And they would get the perfect alignment by tying a little ring to string on his hat.
Right.
And then he would look through it, and if you look through it, it's like you can walk in a straight line and be really precise and get the really precise lines. I don't know how that works, and if it does work, fair play for knowing how to do that, because it just seems really specialist. These 2 men basically said we would go for drinks in our favourite pub, which then it occurs all over the south of England. So you said your favourite pub, it implies one pub.
Pub crawl, possibly.
Yeah, all the way down to Wiltshire, because a lot appear by Stonehenge.
Yeah.
That's like a hotspot, but it's all over. So it could be that they just went places and went to the pub, went drinking, then went out and sort of caused this havoc. And they really enjoyed watching it the next morning when people would sort of flock to the crop circles and conspire that it was aliens, and they were just standing there like... No one said anything. Because they were often on scene as well the next morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
What, in all these places, or...?
Probably some of them.
So they
I'll tell you how I know that they were on scene.
Okay.
In a little bit, and it will kind of become a bit clearer. So they came clean, and they showed the journalist who worked with the newspaper an archive of over 200 designs in their shed, which were aged and did match up to the 2 crop circles around. So they had the designs. So it all seemed pretty convincing, and many people after this were inspired by Doug and Dave. So they've gone out and made their own crop circles using their method that they publicly came out and said. So...
Oh, and it worked for them?
Yeah, it worked for them.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen people make crop circles, and they can make pretty damn accurate crop circles in pretty slim time frames, and they can do it quite well. So we know that humans can do it. And the point of this isn't to look at all crop circles as work of aliens. We know a lot of crop circles are hoaxes from humans. We know that the majority are, in fact, the work of humans. So, yeah, when they came out in the newspaper, it sort of put the matter to bed in a lot of people's heads. They were like, oh yeah, obviously it's not aliens, is it? It's just Doug and Dave from Southampton. 2 men from Southampton who have gone all over the world and done these things, or people who have used the exact same method. Even though I would argue that the method is quite specialist. I don't even know how Doug and Dave thought this up.
Well, if it actually works, then...
I know, but how did they think it up?
They just might be mathematically minded.
And before they came out, how did other people know to use the same method?
How did they remember it after they'd got hammered in the pub?
Yeah, and been able to do it with such precise
Maybe they
precision.
Need that. Maybe
Yeah,
they need that edge.
The courage. So it was put to bed in a lot of people's minds, and many, even alien and UFO researchers who were to believe that it was aliens, and they wrote books about it, they researched this phenomenon. When Doug and Dave came out, they were quite embarrassed, and in all fairness to them, they swallowed their pride and was like, I've been duped, I've been absolutely duped. And one of the UFO researchers said, oh, I actually recognise you two, you were on the scene of a lot of crop circles I went to see when I was researching them, so it all sort of made sense. But a lot of UFO researchers do still acknowledge a lot are done by humans, so it's not like they have a one-track mind and it's aliens only.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to the alien link, but before we do, and we'll come back to Doug and Dave as well, but before we do that, I want to go over some of quite important crop circles that I feel like it's just good to mention in this episode that have been done. Because like I said, a lot of like them are geometric patterns, but there was one in... So basically, in 1974, a team of scientists composed a message to be transmitted to the edge of our galaxy from the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico. It was sent roughly to a group of stars 25,000 light years away, so no one was really meant to receive it. It was more to symbolise the advance of technology. And if we did receive it, it would take like 50,000 years to come back to us, because obviously it would need to go there and back. And by the time it actually reaches the stars would have moved anyway.
Okay.
So it really was meant for no one. It was just, we're advancing this technology, let's send a message out. So it was a 23 by 73 centimetre rectangle, which include binary code information about human beings on our planet. So I've got a picture of it here, and line by line it goes down in binary code. So the top line is the numbers 1 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
The next is elements, binary code for elements that make up our DNA, with carbon being on top and dominant because it's the main thing that makes up most life on Earth.
Yeah.
Then we've got what our DNA looks like, the two-strand, I think it's called the double helix structure.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got an average human being picture, the population on Earth, which at the time was about just over 4 billion, I want to say. And then that line there is how tall human beings are, roughly, like the average human being.
Why, if this is to no one, has it literally got everything on it?
So I think Stephen Hawking actually came out, and don't quote me on this because this could be completely wrong, but I think Stephen Hawking actually came out. Is it Stephen Hawking? Is he the physicist?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to say it and it'd be the author, but that's Stephen King, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was like, if I get those two confused, it's going to be really confusing.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking.
Okay, cool. So Stephen Hawking came out and was like, stop sending stuff out there. We don't need, like, this is, we don't know who's going to receive it. So anyway, we go down to the next line, which is our solar system. So obviously that's the sun, and then we're the third planet from the sun, so that planet is lifted up.
Yeah.
And then underneath it, that's to represent the Arecibo telescope.
Oh, okay.
So that's what sent out the message. So obviously no one expected a reply. However, in Chilbolton, by Chilbolton Radio Telescope, which is in Stockbridge, Hampshire, again,
hello,
something appeared, which from the sky it looks like a face, a human face.
Ooh.
So that appeared in a crop near the Chilbolton telescope.
It's pretty cool.
And then a couple of days later, this appeared in the crop next to the face.
That looks like a reply.
It's obviously speculated to be a reply, and line by line it sort of gives the same information. So it's got the binary code for numbers 1 through 10, which is the system that they use. It's got their main elements for their DNA, with silicon being the most dominant.
Mm-hmm.
And then their DNA strand, it's got an extra strand or something in, so their DNA strands are different to ours. The little human figure is actually more of an alien figure, with the average height being 4 foot. And we know from other witness accounts that have seen aliens, so we think back to the Roswell incident, a lot of those witnesses said they were about 4 foot with large heads, and the figure has a large head. Their population, which is about 21 billion. So, and then they showed something at the bottom, which is, I'm guessing, what they used to send the message.
Yeah.
But no one really knows what that is. Oh, and also above that, they had their solar system, but actually shows 3 planets lifted up in the middle. So it would be speculated that they occupy 3 planets of their solar system.
Mm.
So the figure at the bottom, it doesn't look like the telescope we depicted. So their telescope looks a lot more intricate. But then another crop circle turned up with this image in. And if you, obviously, that needs to be turned round, but if you look at that and then look at the bottom of there, I don't know if you can see from over there, but it kind of looks similar. So that could be another message that they've left behind, another breadcrumb. And a lot of people have said, well, you know, this is clearly a hoax, because no one was meant to receive it, and even if, it wouldn't even be to the destination, so anyone coming across it in space, it's just not possible. But then I thought, we're saying that from a human standpoint of our technology. We don't know what they've got. We don't know if they could pick that up. We don't know what they do or where they are. They could be on Earth for all we know. They could have bases under the water. So I just thought that's... I'm not saying it's real either. I don't know.
I just still don't understand why you put that much thought into a message that you expect no one to receive. You wouldn't. Why wouldn't you just put, like, humans were here, 2K? Why would you deep it that much? Unless you're expecting for someone to pick it up.
Yeah. And then, obviously, it's in binary code, and a lot of the crop circles have been, like, fractals from mathematics.
Yeah.
Maths is a universal language, because if aliens are out there, most likely they're not going to speak English, Chinese, French, Indian. They're not going to speak in our languages, but they can understand maths and mathematics. So if they were to communicate with us, is this how they would do it? And then this is something that I personally can't wrap my head round, so I'll sort of go through my thought process about this. But in Sparsholt, which is also in Hampshire, in 2002, this crop circle appeared. So
What is that?
it shows an alien face, like typical grey alien face kind of thing, with a circle next to it and loads of dots. Well, people have actually worked out that the circle is binary code.
Of course it is.
So they sent a message that says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception, conduit closing." So what I can't wrap my head around is binary code in general. I don't understand it. I'm just not clever enough to wrap my head around it. So I was thinking, okay, so they can't speak English. Can you then do a binary code to be translated into English? Because isn't it just ones and zeros? So how does it translate between the languages? Like, if I sent binary code to someone who speaks only French, it wouldn't be the same message, surely? So I didn't... do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. So it's like, with this, is it a hoax because they can't speak English?
Yeah.
But then we don't know the intelligence they've got on us.
But then if you think about the message itself, it kind of sounds like someone that doesn't speak the language, because it's kind of like broken a little bit.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I think it's just about saying that they're good and they don't like deception, but it doesn't read very well. It doesn't just roll off the tongue.
So I don't know. But then if it were aliens, then why wouldn't they have the tech to be able to translate to other languages?
And if we don't know how much they know about us, and obviously we talked about it in the last episode, like alien bases under the water, people being tracked and like sort of harvesting from human beings to get data analysis, we don't know if they've got like alien translators who know our language. We just don't know. So I just found that one quite interesting. Anyone where it seems like they're trying to communicate with us is quite interesting to me. But on that same vein, all these mathematic structures, there's been some that physicists have looked at, like this one I'm about to show you, where they're like, that could represent a wormhole. And if we follow other crop circles, are we going to find the puzzle pieces to know how to get to that high level technology? Are they leaving pieces for us to follow and we're not picking them up because we think, nah, it's just humans. So we, but they're leaving little breadcrumbs for us. But obviously that's just a theory. I don't know that. And I don't, it just looks like pretty circles. So
yeah, to me I just think, oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it's a really cool pattern.
Love that.
So another strange one was in 2004, Robert Ridge was deer hunting just outside Roswell, New Mexico. It's my new special interest. And in the ground, half buried, he found a rock which had a geometric pattern carved into it. And a few years before that, there was a crop circle that depicted the same pattern.
Right.
But when he found the rock, he didn't think anything about it. He thought, oh, this is a cool rock, and someone's just dropped it. But then when actually analysing the rock, it was discovered that it's magnetised lodestone, which wasn't found in the area.
Right.
And under a microscope, it's smooth, and there are no carving marks. So it's
So they don't know how the picture's there.
Yeah. And then if you look, it looks like the same picture between that and the crop circle.
Oh, yeah?
So that could be another important piece of information. Like, it means something if it's over.
That's so embarrassing
places.
if they're leaving us clues and they're like, we've been doing this for thousands of years. And they're just still not getting it. This is so irritating.
Yeah. But I thought to be in two different places, and if he found that stone in 2004, the crop circle popped up a couple of years before that. So why is it in two places? Because it's quite an intricate pattern. You wouldn't just do that on accident.
No.
Two people wouldn't make that without ever seeing the other one. I don't think that would be an extreme coincidence.
Well, yeah,
and
unless
then
it
someone
is,
saw the crop circle and put it on the rock.
or it does mean something mathematical.
Yeah,
And
that's
then-
another thing, yeah. But then I'm not sure if anyone understands what it means mathematically. So for a hoaxer to do, like, are these hoaxers just really clever physicists? By which point, surely they wouldn't want the speculation of UFOs out there.
Unless this is a new form of control. It's this government's new hand.
Possibly.
They're going with aliens now. Religion does not have the grip it once did.
Yeah.
We need to switch to aliens.
Yeah.
Thinking
possibly.
outside the box.
Yeah, possibly. To me, I feel like the hoaxers are going to be people like Doug and Dave, who are just regular Joes off the street who had a night in the pub and having a laugh. I don't see it as these masterminds, but like you said, it could be all linked to higher up people.
Doug and Dave don't have the time for all this, though. Surely. I mean, we all have the same 24
To do
hours.
200 crop circles is just insanity.
Yeah, and this would have been happening before their time. Unless they're just passing the torch. It's their whole generation.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
It's Doug and Dave's family legacy. The ultimate jokers.
So, I think we need to get the hats on for this next bit. So, I found the crop circles I've just showed you really interesting, but who's to say it's not done by hoaxers? Like I just went through, I think it just doesn't make sense in my brain. It just doesn't.
What, for
correlate.
it not to be jokers?
No, for it to be hoaxers who are putting that much effort in.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make...
It's
for
a
what
lot.
as well? For what?
That's a lot for just jokes.
Because they did it for years before they came out in 1991.
It would get boring.
Was it all for just the reveal? Like, you could have done two and had the same reveal.
Or maybe they're like the Banksy of...
Yeah.
Like, that's just their thing.
So, anyway, when you actually look into Doug and Dave, obviously when it comes out in the newspaper, people see it and they're like, oh, well, that's that. It's not aliens, it's just humans. But then some people looked into them and they were like, actually, these guys are a bit sketchy. So when they came forward, 1,500 crop circles were documented in 23 countries. So again,
That's a lot.
were people just using the same method? To me, who thinks of that? Who thinks of doing this? Like, that's what I just can't get my head around. So that's suspicious in itself. And then their crop circles were good, but when people reviewed them more closely, many of them were actually out of alignment. And the news crew that were sort of documenting the Doug and Dave journey were like, recreate one on camera.
Yeah.
And they did, and they actually accidentally made it twice as big as it should have been. And this was recorded, but they kind of just laughed it off and gave up making it.
That's the beers.
Yeah. And then the year they said they started making them kept changing, and they could never actually seem to agree on the same year. So first it was 1976, then 1975, and then 1978.
To be fair, that to me is not as suspicious.
Because how would you
ask
remember?
me a date
Yeah,
and I'm not going to know.
you wouldn't really remember. So some circles at the start that they actually said they made when they came out and admitted to it, because obviously they said, oh yeah, we made that one wasn't ours, or whatever happened.
Yeah.
Some of them they claimed were theirs. Later on they came out and was like, oh no, we didn't do that, but I know the people who did and we helped them. But then I don't know who these other people are. And it's just the fact that they lied. And
Wait, so they didn't even know the people that they helped?
We don't know.
Oh,
them.
we don't know.
They just said, oh yeah, no, I know the people who did it. And
But they
we
won't
helped
say
them.
who.
It's not that they won't say it, I just don't think it was like, I don't know if, I haven't watched the news articles of this, and I probably should do, but I don't know if the news journalists were just like, oh, fair.
Say less. I feel
And
like
I
they would
don't
have
know-
asked the question.
Well, I don't know what format this is in,
Oh.
or if this is just actually in the news format.
Yeah.
But this, I just know that they've later come out and been like, oh no, that one wasn't ours, that was done by whoever.
Bill and
Don't
Ben.
worry about it.
Bill and Ben, Dave and Doug.
So then the next thing that was a bit suspicious is there's a crop circle called Cheesefoot Head Crop Circle that Doug and Dave claimed they made.
Is that where it is?
I think so.
Okay.
However, in the crop circle at Cheesefoot Head, let's say, I hope it is the place, there were no track lines in the field. So obviously when you look at a crop field, there's track lines that you walk through the crop. And
Yeah.
if there's no track lines, you would disturb the crop when walking through.
Yeah.
So there was none of that. So they were like, well, how did you do that? And Doug and Dave were like, duh, we pole vaulted into the field. And he said, so to quote him, he said in an interview, you should have seen us running through the fields with our sticks, sailing over the corn. It just reminds me of that Theresa May interview of like running through the fields of wheat. Imagine being a farmer and like sensing a disturbance on your field and going out, and then there's just two men sailing over the corn with
Mid-air.
bubbles.
Oh my god, that's really funny. That, yeah.
So, apparently, these two men who would become out of breath when they were recreating these crop circles by pushing a plank of wood down and walking in a circle. Yes, they were older at that time when they came out, so I understand that could be the reason why they were so unfit at that time and they could pole vault in at another time. But they want us to believe that they pole vaulted with all their equipment into a field, did the crop circle, and pole vaulted out like nothing. It just doesn't, it's not mathing. So investigators of crop circles actually contacted Doug and Dave and said they were investigating a jelly-like substance found at a site of a crop circle, and he said it was most likely waste ejected from a plane, as one day when he was making a crop circle, he got hit in the face by waste ejected from a plane. And I think he just means like a flying turd. So he actually said, oh yeah, I went back to the car and I was bleeding, like, because it would hit him with some force.
A human missile.
So people were like, oh, okay. And then it was said that the crop circle he said that happened in, planes didn't even eject waste over that area, and it would have been illegal for them to do so.
And why would it be jelly?
I don't, exactly.
How can it make you
just
bleed and be jelly?
I feel like this
What are
guy
you
is
eating?
in way over his head and the lie's gone too far, but he has to keep it going because he can't just come out now and be like, we never did them. Fine. You've got me, I admit it. We never did any of them. So he just has to keep lying and lying and lying, and it's all just burying him. Because there's some stuff that he can't account for, but he's like, oh, it's a flying turd. The only thing it could be is a flying turd.
Do you think he replays that conversation? Like, you know, when you think about stuff in the shower and he's like, why did I say all
He walks away from it and he's just like, oh.
that could have gone better.
That's going to be on the news. He looks in the mirror like, come on, Doug.
Get it together. I can just imagine seeing them driving along on the motorway with their like pole vault strapped to the roof.
Where were they when they were at the pub?
Yeah.
Where did they keep the pole vaults? Have the pole vaults ever been found since? Like, if we're going through this as a media investigation, it's a sensational story they're going to cover it. But if you're looking at it from maybe, like, a deeper investigation level, like, if it was a crime, say, and you're looking into this,
well, you look
there are
into,
so many
like,
holes.
the distance of the outside to where the crop circle started.
Whereas this guy's just saying stuff, and people are like, makes sense. You know those people who are like, we just need to meet them and make sure they're trustworthy. It seems like these guys were just deemed as trustworthy and no one actually sat and was like, this is...
They're like the Finding Bigfoot people. They're like,
Yeah.
now I've spoken to you, I believe
They just
you.
wanted to take what they had to say because it fit their narrative.
Yeah.
So, anyway, again, these men aren't reliable, but that's not to say that the majority of crop circles out there are done by humans. It's just these men are not reliable in the slightest, and like I said, I think they're just burying themselves in lies, and they just can't get out of it. And to be honest, if I had come out and said, I've pranked you all by doing all these crop circles, so aliens don't exist, and then I kept getting asked all these questions about jelly substances, I would probably panic and be like, it's a flying turd.
Maths! It would just run through the crop circle crying.
Like, if I was the investigator, I would just hand him a pole vault and be like, get your equipment.
Go on then.
Go on. And then if he was like, oh no, I would, but I used to be a pro pole vaulter, but you know, I had my ankle injury. Never made it big after that. I would be like, okay, show me the medical records. I need the receipts.
Go on, Dave.
So, are there actually reasons why we think it could be aliens? Because we can safely say it's not animal. Well, we can't. Can we safely say that? I think we can.
Yeah, with the mathematical, the
I
ones
think
that
we
are
can.
actually precise, I
Those
think.
three theories at the beginning, let's just throw them out the water.
If it was like today, you could say that drones probably would have the potential of doing it. But what about all the ones before that? If the corn's not been or
and how
whatever
would drones
disturbed.
do it?
Well, at least they're not going to be making tracks through the corn for one.
Yeah, but how
then
would they push down the corn?
you could have like an attachment on them or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's true. Okay, so that leads me on to
Okay.
a good theory. So, yeah, why do we actually think there's aliens? So, a lot of people have seen lights around the crops before the formation appears. So, before we started recording, I showed the girls the video to sort of make this smoother.
Yeah.
So, they've seen the video of an orb flying over a crop, and that one was caught on camera, but there are loads of witnesses who just say, I saw an orb of light, and then a crop circle appeared.
Yeah.
So, there are witness accounts to it. So, the most compelling piece of evidence that we kind of have is crop circles made by humans, and there are some other crop circles that have differences in. So, the ones that are made by humans and Doug and Dave methods, there are some sort of clues left in the crop to what has caused the crop circle to form. So, the ones with Doug and Dave's method, you can see that the crop has been pushed down on one side of it. It's sort of a bend in the stalk.
Okay.
It doesn't break the stalk, but actually the flowers and leaves on the crop, they can be destroyed generally in the crop circle itself. Even though it might look nice and pretty from the sky, it's just a bit of a mess. And then there's these other crop circles where, so you've got a stalk of crop, there's like a joint in it, like a knuckle.
Yeah.
And these joints have like a bulging appearance all round it.
So it's gone from the top, not from...
No, so it kind of makes it elongate and rupture from the inside.
Yeah.
And scientists have looked at this and said the only thing that would cause that, and you cannot fake this, is radiation, microwave radiation. And that is the only thing that would cause this type of appearance on the crop. And there are actually evidences to back that up, because crop circles where that's present, they've done an experiment where a woman with an enlarged thyroid went and sat in a crop circle for a couple of hours being monitored by a doctor, and her thyroid shrunk. And pregnant women and people with pacemakers are actually advised, don't go near crop circles. Why?
Yeah.
Literally why, if we think it's just planks of wood and string. So, and they've said that you can't fake that. And for me, because it's microwave radiation, what human has access to technology that's going to do that, other than, like, the military?
So it could add to the government theory, and it also adds to the alien theory.
But does the military even have access to that? Because it would be quite dangerous.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, so it's not like Doug and Dave are going to have access to that kind of technology. So
they're just out with their microwave and a really long extension.
But the microwave doesn't even work if the door's shut.
That's facts.
It is facts. So further to the appearance of the bulging stems, a lot of witnesses actually say after the crop circle appeared, there was a weird mist above the crop. And people said, well, the people who know about the microwave radiation theory, they're like, well, that steam come from the internal heating of the crop.
Yeah.
And crop circles with this feature, they also create what's called a ghost circle. So after the crop's been ploughed, the formation's still in the ground. And some, even up to 2 years later, the formation can still be seen. That's not with other crop circles. Mm. So it seems like we have quite a good differentiation between what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
What's just planks of wood. So, and also, apparently, electrical abnormalities occur in crop circles. So cameras, watches and other electrical equipment doesn't always work, or it kind of goes a bit screwy when they're by the crop circle. So that's why people with pacemakers shouldn't go in.
Yeah.
But
which makes sense.
Why or how?
Well, if it is, that makes sense with the radio. Yeah.
So it just, there are inconsistencies in the human story, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, when crop circles became more prevalent in 1985, Margaret Thatcher actually got involved, because obviously I'm guessing a lot of them were in the south of England, and sort of was like, said to the military scientists or the military, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
You need to do something, because this is getting out of control. So the military set up an operation called Operation Blackbird, I want to say it was. Yeah, Operation Blackbird. And this was a 3-week surveillance operation. And they cornered off a field so no hoaxers could get in, and set up cameras all around. So every inch of this field was monitored by cameras. And it wasn't just normal cameras, it was night vision and... what's the one called, the heat sensor camera?
The infrared.
The infrared cameras. So it was monitored.
Yeah.
They got a guy in called Colin Andrews, who was kind of a crop circle researcher for validity of the project. And they monitored it on TV. So Colin Andrews would make TV appearances every day to say the day's activity. But they were basically waiting to catch how a crop circle was made on camera. Day 2 of the investigation, a crop circle appeared, and Colin Andrews came out on TV and said, we've got a crop circle. However, when it was actually looked at, it was quite a crude pattern. I don't know what the pattern was. I just imagine, like, a phallic object.
Yeah, we were thinking the same
thing.
thing.
Right way. I know there's certain words you shouldn't say on YouTube, and we're trying to be more careful about it. So I'm just... phallic object, that seems PC enough. Or PG enough, I should say.
I thought you were just going to say it. Or blip. I was like, oh, okay.
So I picture that, but I don't actually know. And I do,
that's what I would do.
It is what I would do as well. If I was trying to troll people, that's what I would do. So Colin Andrews was seen on TV and he was like, this is actually really embarrassing. Like, this is a poor hoax and people are actually just trying to set us back on what we're trying to do, which is actual science here. Like, take your phallic objects and go away. And there was actually an astrology map left in the centre of the crop circle, which I don't know is a little bit of like a ha-ha of like all this, like, you know, gobbledygook that people think, not gobbledygook, but like, you know, like weird stuff. People are like, oh, crop circles, put an astrology map there. I don't know why it was there. That's kind of my thoughts on it. After this, Colin was thinking, well, how did hoaxers manage to get in if the military was literally monitoring everywhere? And when he came out on TV and said at first, oh, day 2, we've got ourselves a crop circle, he was pressured into saying that from the military. He had not actually seen the crop circle with his own eyes because it was still dark when it happened.
Right.
So the military was like, we've got one, say it on TV, before he had actually seen it or seen the evidence of what created it.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like, this all feels a bit odd. And then you find out that there was actually a secret operation going on, which was pretty much the same operation, but secret, on Silbury Hill. And on the Silbury Hill operation, this is alleged, and we don't know, we can't fact check it, but apparently the military have filmed that bright orbs over the crop and crop circles appeared when the bright orb was there. So they've got it on camera of a crop circle being made from this secret operation that no one knew about, not even Colin Andrews.
Why did they bring Colin there? Was this operation embarrass Colin? Because why was he even there?
I feel like they really sold Colin down the river. I think it was to basically give validity to the project and then completely take the validity away from it. Because if Colin can be duped, that means everyone can be duped, kind of thing.
But then he didn't even...
I think he was a complete patsy.
Oh, poor Colin.
I know. Because then... I didn't research into this too much because my little brain couldn't handle it, but Colin's got receipts that he was actually being monitored by the CIA afterwards. So he's been interviewed by like military personnel about private conversations he had in his car, not with them. So his phone's been hacked, or his car, like they bugged his car or whatever it might be. And there are more evidence with like invoices and stuff, but you'd have to look that up to understand it. Like I said, I didn't go into it, but he's basically got the receipts that he was being monitored by the CIA.
Right.
But I just haven't looked into that part of it, but it is out there. It would just take a little bit of digging. That I obviously wasn't prepared to do for this episode. I'll be honest, me and Ellen have had quite a tough week for different reasons. We've just been really busy this week, so I'm so sorry that I just didn't have the willpower to do this.
You've done quite a lot of research anyway, so it's okay.
I'm sorry to Liv,
okay.
I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to everyone out there. I've completely winged this one.
No,
I'm still... we've got the main facts anyway. So, back to the story. So, do you remember Doug and Dave? Obviously, we all do.
Hard to forget.
Who could forget them? We actually know that they were paid by the military and CIA to come out and say what they did. And we know that they were paid because they got paid half up front. They had to sue for the other half of the money.
Wow.
So, we know they were compensated for what they said. So, what did they find in because the operation happened before Doug and Dave came out. So what did they find in that secret operation that then meant, okay, we've already invalidated this whole theory with Colin being the patsy on Operation Blackbird, because we've showed that hoaxes can be done, even though it's suspicious, but we'll go a step further and say who the hoaxers are in 1991, so 6 years later.
But how do they know it was the CIA that paid them? Because surely they'd use some sort of shell corp or something like
that. I'm not sure. I think they got payments, so people just... We don't know... Okay, let me rephrase that. We don't know who paid them, but we know they were paid.
Right. Someone wanted them to say it. Yeah.
Two blokes who had done this prank, why are they being paid for it?
Yeah.
Unless they were paid by the newspaper. Anyway, in short, I don't know what causes crop circles, but there is enough for me to say. It's not Dave and Doug. It's not Dave and Doug. It would be unlikely to be other humans. It's not animals. It's not wind. It's not energy from the earth. So what is it? And I'm going to have a little rant, and I'll make it quick. But when I was looking into this, obviously I wanted the alien parts. I wanted to know why it could possibly be aliens, because I go into it with a fresh mind thinking, okay, I'm not going to straight away jump to the fact that it is an alien. I want to know why people think it's aliens, because sometimes I think people see something and think, that's a bit odd. It doesn't look exactly human, and they go initially to alien, where it could be, like, why is there not a third option?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So that's what I wanted to know, what the hard proof was for aliens. But everywhere you look, and this is like a lot of alien stuff, and it might be tactical, I will sort of allege or speculate that a lot of articles or a lot of sites about it, it kind of pokes fun at people believing it's aliens. And I don't know if this really got to me when I was researching this because I felt personally attacked. But a lot of people are like, oh, stubborn conspiracy theorists think it's this, but, you know, Doug and Dave came out, so what do you say about that? And it's like, well, what do you say about the microwave radiation?
Yeah.
That has been, it can't be faked, but it feels like people just put that to the wayside, say the theory that's the mainstream, and then poke fun at you, but don't address why people aren't sure.
It just probably makes them feel better, though.
Yeah, but it's like, if you can't tell me why, if you can't give me a reason why for that, I'm not even asking for a reason, actually, that, you know, you don't, because if you don't know, that's fine, but just acknowledge.
But you don't know either way.
There are some things that don't add up about the Doug and Dave theory. We still are searching for answers, and I think, why are you poking fun at, I'm going to say me. Literally, I felt so personally attacked in these, but I thought, why are you poking fun at people who look into it and then think, actually, that's a bit strange, and just think, oh, like, just a stubborn conspiracy theorist, as I'm sat here in a tinfoil hat, but why does it happen when it's like, you've not acknowledged those discrepancies, you've not even gone into it, so how can I trust anything that you're saying? I actually think that's more laughable to see a picture in the newspaper of Doug and Dave talking about pole vaulting into a cornfield and flying turds than it is to think, okay, well, it can't be done by all of these things that people have suggested, and there's discrepancies, and there are actual reasons why people think it could be aliens. Is it so much of a stretch to go to alien?
Or just like think that's a bit weird. That's a bit weird. Yeah,
you don't have to get on board with the alien theory, but just stop making fun of people. But I think because it's out there, and it's like that place that you get information from, and you have to dig to get to the discrepancies of it. And a lot of them, if you do find an article on it, is just poking fun at people for acknowledging there's discrepancies and being like, well, it couldn't be that because of this. It's like with the Arecibo telescope message. Someone was like, well, they wouldn't have picked that up anyway because it was sent to a star that would move by the time it gets to it, and it would take 50,000 light years to come back to us. And it's like, yeah, but we don't know what technology has, so why is it so bad for just saying it? And I don't know if that's a tactic by like mainstream media to basically, again, invalidate the other side of it. So that was just my little rant, but I feel like, it was because I felt personally offended. I can't help it.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can't shut it down without maybe other reasons for shutting it down, or just acknowledge that there are some things that are question mark.
Yeah. Okay, well, Doug and Dave didn't make the ones with microwave radiation, so let's just put a pin in that. Yeah.
Weird.
But yeah, that's crop circles. I hope you enjoyed that.
I did actually.
Okay.
I did enjoy that. Okay, so I have gone into the cattle mutilations point of view, and it really is kind of linking to our last alien episode because it's about the investigation alien, because they do go into that, but we just didn't have a chance.
I loved that episode. It's like you said about the rancher who was like, I don't want to say UFO, but an unidentified flying object, like that killed me.
I loved watching it. So there's sort of two stories on the go. One of the guys, I can't remember what his name is. So obviously there's George Knapp, and then I was like, I won't write the other guy's name down because I remember it.
He's just going to be Jeremy Corbell. It's the skeptic, isn't it?
The guy who used to work in the CIA, or he was like undercover. Yeah. Or just matey moo. So the first story, we are taken to Burns in Oregon, and that's where we meet Colby Marshall, and he talks about his experience with animal mutilations. So he's lived in Burns all of his life, and he was a previous ranch manager. He had 5 range bulls that were murdered and mutilated within a 24-hour period, which is just crazy because they were all
Yeah.
like in different locations as well. So he contacted the state police, the forest service, and the county sheriff, and they all came out to collect forensic evidence to see if they could find out who the perpetrators were. And they also offered a $25,000 reward, and it brought up absolutely nothing.
In all fairness, I thought that was mad until they said about the price of what they're losing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, fair enough, because I thought 25,000 for some cows, like, that's a lot. But then the price of the cow, or like how much money they would get for it, they lose a lot of money from these incidents. It's mad.
He was saying like every bull costs in total around 20 grand to replace, and imagine that happening
So
to
that's
you
£100,000.
5 times. Not over your lifetime, but in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And no one's got any evidence. They asked Colby what he thought was behind the attack and whether he had considered anything paranormal. But he said he doesn't think it's anything paranormal. He thinks it's a group of people that have targeted him. Although he couldn't give any reasons for why. Maybe he didn't want to go into it, because obviously you would have had to have done something pretty heinous for someone to do that to you that many times.
Yeah. I think it's also quite concerning about thinking of like individuals who would do that if it's a revenge thing.
It's quite sadistic, really.
It's a bit of a sick individual to do that. So, you as a police, you would probably be asking why. But I wanted to just clarify: did the police ask him if he's considered anything paranormal, or was this the guy who? Okay.
This was when they were driving to the first incident. Yeah. I don't know if the police would ask him.
That's what I thought. I don't know if the police, but then you don't know in like small towns in America, the police department are often quite how do I say this? Yeah, and they sometimes just do things outside the norm, and maybe like they often believe things about like satanic cults and that. So I didn't know if it was like, oh, we got another cow thing, like it's aliens. Sorry, man, you're just gonna have to pay the 100 grand.
Take the L.
It's aliens, isn't it? We don't actually have jurisdiction in the sky.
So he then takes them to. So I think. This is Knapp. This was one with Knapp, George Knapp. So he took him to the area where the first bull was found, and the bones are actually still on the ground. And it's basically just in a large clearing. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. There are some trees, but there's no like roads really nearby or anything like that. So when they initially found the bull, it was laying there with no genitalia. So all the reproductive organs had been removed with no other signs of harm to the bull at all. Interestingly, there was no blood in the animal or around the animal at all. And over the next month, the body just sort of melted into the ground, is how he described it.
So to me, the person saying, I think it's a group of people targeting me, if I was a person wanting to get revenge on another person, say, and I went after their cattle because I knew the price of them, why would I go about unaliving them through that way and taking the genitalia? You wouldn't.
And
it
also,
would be like it's so difficult to be PG when we're talking about this stuff, but it wouldn't be in those means. I'll leave it at that.
Equally, it would be a crime of passion as well. This is a big operation. If no blood was spilt and it was all taken,
it's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of effort.
You would have to know physiology and anatomy of cattle,
or just just medical knowledge to be able to do these things with the precision that they've been done.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to operate on a bull.
But another interesting thing is that the carcass was completely untouched, so it wasn't torn apart by predators or scavengers at all, which, I mean, considering they were in the middle of nowhere, I'm sure there was probably quite a lot of predators around. It's just really strange that absolutely nothing touched it at all. And then they went on to explain that roughly a bull would have about 50 litres of blood in it. Yeah, which is a lot. So for that all to be taken, I mean, you would
And
have
how?
to, it would be exsanguination, wouldn't it, really? Which, I mean, you've got to be pretty skilled to be able to do that.
You've got to get in with a lot of equipment as well and take away, how much did you say, 50 litres?
Yeah.
So you would need buckets that held that much on 5 cows.
Yeah.
And sneaking into a ranch, it's if it's done by humans, even though I don't like the idea of cattle being obviously unalived and harmed, you've got to respect it, because it's almost like, wow, you did a
I
task.
just feel like there's easier ways to get revenge than that.
Yeah,
If
definitely.
that's what
The
it
revenge
boils down
theory
to.
is just, it holds no weight to it. I think if it's a sick individual, it still kind of holds no weight to it, really, because, again, why?
For what purpose? Yeah. And then they went to have a look at the bones of the second bull. And again, that had been completely untouched. There was no gnaw marks to the bones at all. They were completely clean. And it just begs the question, what was it that put off predators and scavengers from touching either of those two bulls? Like, there must have been something. It's just very odd that both would be untouched. Because if they're in different areas, you'd think, okay, well, maybe one just... Maybe there aren't any scavengers or predators nearby, but for the other one...
Yeah.
You
I
would-
wonder if this is... Obviously, these are the two that we saw in the documentary, and they went round to a couple. But I wonder if this is... Because this obviously happens a lot more than these just two ranchers. I wonder if this is a feature in all of the bizarre mutilations.
And then you think, if you're gonna unalive an animal, why would you take anything away from it? But particularly, why would you take its reproductive organs? It's just a bit of a strange...
Yeah. And it also, if, just speaking generally about how this does happen all over, it completely debunks the revenge theory, or that this is by one person.
Yeah.
So are they just going on a road trip of the States?
Well, everyone's getting the same revenge idea. So then we're taken to the second story, which is in a town called Fossil. Again, this is in Oregon as well. I think it's quite a hot spot, and I don't know if that's because the land just lends its hand to being that way, because there's a lot of, ranchers in that area. I'm not sure. But that's when they meet Dave Hunt. So he was a 5th generation rancher, and he'd lived on the ranch for 70 years. And he said at least a dozen of his neighbours that they're aware of have also had similar occurrences. But he said, it's a really tough topic for them, because when livestock is your life, you've grown up around them, you know exactly what to expect, what they're like, and when you see something that's not normal, that's a really tough thing for you to deal with. And he said, I had to sit on that information for a bit, because it just I found it really tough. It just didn't sit well with me, which is completely understandable. He lost both a bull and a cow within 6 months of each other. So the bull was in December and the cow was in June or July. But he goes on to explain that in the area they've lost about 15 to 20 cattle over the last 3 to 4 years. So quite a lot. But he says, along with these incidents, they have also seen UFOs, or as he likes to say, unidentified flying objects, at the same time or very close to these incidents. He said that there was this one particular time that stood out to him where his wife actually called him outside to have a look at this craft that was hovering. And at that point, he went straight back into the house and got his rifle. But as soon as his scope was on the craft, it disappeared. It didn't fly away. It disappeared out of sight instantly. It was there and then not. So Dave then takes us to the first location where he lost his bull in December. And he said that when he found the bull, it was lying with its head pointing forwards, but its legs were also straight out in front of it. And he said he's never seen a bull or a cow in that position in his 70 years.
It literally looked like it had been petrified.
Yeah.
In Harry Potter.
It did.
When they get petrified, that's what it looked like.
So there were no tracks, and again, no blood left behind. But in this case, the bull's nose had gone, lips had gone, tongue had gone, ears had gone, and his tail had been skinned, but all looked like they were done with precision, like they were laser cut. He said that he thought there was some sort of heat involved because the hairs were actually curled, like they were singed.
Yeah.
And this was at a time when there was 4 inches of snow on the ground as well. So for there to be absolutely no tracks and no blood whatsoever is just very strange. He said he spoke to his vet, and the vet said that the only way that you could actually get all of that blood out the animal was to basically do it while it was alive, which is a really horrible thought, and use the momentum of the heart pumping to do that.
Still, it would be a really difficult and laborious task for a human to do. It's just not, like, it's just, what purpose would it serve?
And how did they get there without leaving any tracks of any kind?
And he saw the craft. Obviously, that's a witness statement that we all know people can fabricate or misidentify objects, but I just think it adds weight to why people think this is aliens, like seeing orbs, seeing crafts, and just knowing that it doesn't make sense for it to be done by a human, but it would just be such a laborious task.
He also said that the other bulls that he had were absolutely terrified. They were acting really out of character. He said they're normally really quite confident and he could pet them freely, but they were terrified. So for them to be that scared, it would have had to have been something quite significant, to spook them. He then showed a picture of one of his cows, the one that was found 6 months after the bull. And we'll put a picture up here. At a glance, it looked like it could be still alive. It was really strange. So he said its head was actually still up when it passed away, when really it would have just fell to the ground.
Well, all of it would have flopped.
Yeah, but it was lying down with its head still looking straight ahead. And again, he said, you know, in his 70 years, he's seen pretty much everything that could
happen to a cow.
That could cause something like end of life. And there was nothing that he's ever seen that comes close to that. And he said, how would it have even been put in that position? You know, these cows weigh, what, like 2,500 pounds or something like that. Something crazy. So to do that and then put it back in that position, again, this is a big operation. I think also it's interesting, the parts that were took from the bull are stuff that you could get from a butcher's that they would pretty much be giving away because no one really buys. Yeah. So what is the purpose? You could just literally go to a butcher's, but I don't understand.
I don't know what message it sends either, like going back to the revenge theory or just being a sick person. I still don't understand the purpose of it. So I think, I don't want to say aliens, but what else?
Yeah, and then you think, okay, so if it is aliens, are they looking at our food chain?
Yeah.
Is that a consideration? Or
is it more just harvesting of evidence? And if they took the reproductive organs, are they trying to make the similar sort of species? And why only cows? Why does it not happen to other livestock, like sheep?
Yeah, I don't know if it does. I'm not sure. But obviously they only specifically talked about cattle in this. Yeah. But I've not really heard.
If anyone else knows that, comment down below, because that's quite an interesting
That would be
point.
interesting.
Yeah, see if anyone's come across that, because I've not heard about that. So
yeah. But Dave then introduces his son to the programme. And his son said that he'd also encountered something strange. He said whilst he was driving in his truck, he pulled over to stop the car because he saw a buck up on a hill. And he went to take a video of it to show his family and friends. He didn't think anything on it, but as he was playing the video to his friends and family, that's when he noticed that there's something walking behind the buck. And it kind of looks like someone in a spacesuit or something.
Yeah, it looks like a robot.
Or like a
just
hazmat
yeah.
suit kind of thing. But the buck doesn't move at all, doesn't
No.
look behind, nothing like that. And for would you class it as a prey animal? I guess you probably would.
Yeah.
It would be easily spooked. It would
Yeah.
definitely have heard whatever it was
Something.
behind them and looked at it. But
if
it
it's
just
not making footsteps because it's hovering, I don't know if it is hovering, but to make footsteps you walk side to side, don't you? And
Yeah.
you move. This is just moving forward, but it's not moving.
Yeah, and it was just really strange that it just didn't react at all.
It didn't look like another animal either. It didn't look like anything I've ever seen. I don't know what it was. I don't know what could cause that. Anyone's got any ideas, comment down below. I would love to hear them.
But they took the information gathered from both Colby and Dave and approached a man called Colm A. Kelleher. So he had a PhD and he's a biochemist. He's been at the scene of multiple mutilation cases all over the world. And he said that looking at both of these stories, it really reminds him of field sampling operations. So is that aliens trying to scope out what we're about, like scope out our planet?
Would it be possible that the government's behind it then?
Maybe.
Again, for what purpose? I do not know.
Well,
but
could it
obviously
be
it's a possibility?
a relation to some sort of pesticides? Like, has there been some sort of chemical leak and they're trying to find out how far it's spread by doing these and like sampling? And I don't know, are they trying to cover something up or is it alien? It definitely seems like it's more than someone just trying to get revenge. That's for sure. That's
Again, we've come back to another point where it's kind of got to a point where we've said, well, it can't be what people have suggested it to be and people believe it to be. There's too many inconsistencies, whether it's aliens or not. But what's another theory? Is there like 5 theories it could be? And the only thing that sort of is our common thinking, it's not what we sort of think it to be or what we thought it to be or what other people think it to be or the common narrative. It's not that.
Yeah,
In
it's
any
not
of these stories,
an
it's not in
isolated
that.
incident. This alludes to whoever's behind it being an operation and not an isolated incident committed by
one person or a group of people.
Yes.
But again, why?
Yeah, and his reasoning behind it seeming like a field sampling operation is basically based off repeated patterns of removing the same sort of tissues again and again. Alludes to obviously, something going on there. They ask him whether the fact that no predators or scavengers had touched any of these cases that they had seen, they asked, is that normal? And Combs said, yeah, he's done previous research before and that does tend to be the case with these types of incidents. They even, when one was discovered, set up cameras for 2 days and there wasn't a single predator or scavenger that approached the animal at all. So he said
And that's not his scavenger operations, those are other ones where they don't know what's happened.
This is what Colm has seen in other cases over the world.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this was in an area that had quite a lot of coyotes, so there was definitely predators in the area.
For it,
yeah. So it's just clear that whatever's behind it has A, medical knowledge, B, a lot of technology
to do it quickly,
to be able to do it. And it would kind of lend itself to being some sort of aerial operation if there are no tracks left behind. That's the only explanation, that it's something aerial, whether it's...
And what would make sense for those 3 things? Aliens.
I'm just going to say it.
I don't want to say extraterrestrial, but
I'm trying
aliens.
hard to be unbiased, so hard.
Like, if it's a government operation, okay, what's the evidence for that?
But you
and
know
then
what?
I'll follow that.
I think a government operation would, to me, be far more terrifying than
Yeah.
it being an alien. I would rather it be an alien.
Yeah, to
Because-
be fair, you're right.
Yeah, that is a lot more sinister in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be like, why? And then to keep it hidden and then kind of sprinkle in the alien doubt. And I think, yeah, if they ever got found out that they're behind it, there would be outrage. So maybe this is why the alien theory's been sprinkled in to kind of convolute that. Because if it's aliens, what can we actually do about it? If it's the government, there would be uproar.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I would love to know what you guys think. Maybe we're crazy. Stubborn conspiracy theorists.
Don't come for me. Yeah. I just like to know and I love to learn.
It's a
love to
discussion,
learn.
isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, and this is what we mean when we say it's a safe space, like just chatting about theories. I like to see what other people think about it. I like to know what other people have heard, because other people have heard completely different information to maybe what I've heard, and then you fact check yourself or you learn new things. It's just, I just love it. But yeah, shall we finish on watchery?
Yes.
And I've got an alien related watchery this week.
It's not actually alien, is it?
No.
Okay.
It's a documentary and it's on Netflix. It's called Alien Abduction in Manhattan or Abduction in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-part series and I'm not going to go too deep in, but there's 3 main characters that sort of appear in the documentary. So there's a lady called Linda who has the abduction story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy called Bud Hopkins who is a renowned UFO author and researcher. And then there's his wife, filmmaker Carol. And the documentary starts with Linda sort of going over her abduction story, like a little teaser into it. And her abduction story is actually wild because she lived in a high Manhattan apartment. You know, the apartments in New York and everything.
Yeah.
She was on, I can't remember what story, but it was a high floor. And she was basically like levitated out of her apartment and people witnessed it.
Oh.
And there were other things in her story, like after an incident, she got abducted twice in her testimony.
Yeah.
And after one of them, she had this bump on her nose when she was taking pictures, and she didn't remember the incidents at first, so she just saw this bump on her nose and she was like, that's weird. Went to the doctor and there was like an implement in her nose, like what you said about
Like
the Terry Lovelace. And if anyone wants to know what we're on about, go watch our previous alien episode, because we go into sort of aliens and medical technology there. But yeah, she had something in her nose that she hadn't had an operation for. It didn't leave a scar. Like, she didn't know why she had this there.
What a strange place. Like, you can't really cover it there.
Yeah, so it was really weird. And she got in contact with Bud Hopkins after she started having these really weird dreams. And sort of remembering that these beings took her. She remembers being on the spacecraft. Again, a lot like Terry Lovelace's thing, where he didn't remember it at first. It was all repressed, and then it came out in dreams.
Yeah.
So she got in contact with Bud Hopkins, who at the time was doing a study on people who didn't remember them, but he would do hypnosis to go over it.
Yeah.
And these people, when doing hypnosis, would cry and scream, and, you know, it was visibly distressing them. And they would go over these incidents, and they would all have a support group as well, because they said, we can't talk to anyone about it, so we all need to be together. So everyone who's been abducted is together in this support group, and Bud Hopkins is sort of pushing forward the research. And then we meet Carol at the beginning, and the documentary isn't so much focused on just Linda's abduction. It's like this weird side story where Carol just hates her. Like, and Carol will never, I don't think Carol ever explicitly says that, but like, you can see the anger and the bitterness when she talks about her. And there's a lot of shots of Carol just watching over old films she has of Linda telling her story.
Yeah.
Where she's just looking at it with such disgust
Why?
and despise. And Linda says, oh, she's a bitter ex-wife. So I was like, oh, maybe they had an affair. But they didn't. So Carol started to become suspicious. She was already a skeptic, and she was documenting Bud's journey, and she became suspicious of Linda because under hypnosis she was quite controlled. So she would cry, but she wouldn't be like writhing on the bed, like sobbing.
Hysterical, yeah.
Yeah, she just did like a little pretty cry, and the camera loved her, and she loved the camera. And you can tell that, like, she's a natural born storyteller, like, I was hooked. And she said, she always had her hair done, she always had her makeup done before she came round, and everything like that. So I just think she said they got on in the beginning, but she just had a bugbear about her. And then she started doubting her story when she saw the hypnosis tapes of Linda compared to other people. So then she was like, I'm going to try out this hypnosis for myself, and she did actually regress back to some childhood trauma.
Right.
And she was in kind of a highly religious family. I don't want to say cult, but she was in a highly religious family with a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And then that was sort of it. She never went into that. I don't really know why she brought that up, because she was like, I don't really like to talk about it. And then that was just that. Yeah, but it seems that's true, so the hypnosis worked for her.
Yeah.
It took her back to a traumatic time.
Yeah.
But as time went on with Linda, she started adding more bizarre things to the story. Carol didn't believe the witnesses that saw her levitating. Carol didn't believe the surgical pictures. Carol didn't believe the hypnosis. Carol didn't believe the fact that she was then kidnapped by 2 police officers. The story did get quite wild. This is what I mean. I won't go into that actual bit. I just want to talk about the Carol side story. But she started like getting suspicious of all of this, and then she started getting suspicious of her husband, but not so much nefariously suspicious. She was just like, I think you're looking for things and then creating them.
Yeah.
So you believe so much that it's alien abduction. Under hypnosis, you make these people believe that they've been abducted by aliens.
Right.
So she really started to look into some other bits about Linda and find some other holes in her story. But to be honest, I never really got... Like, to me, there was more compelling evidence that for it than against it. And it seemed like because Carol was so unobjective in her body language, in her facial expressions towards Linda, it naturally just made you think you've got it out for this woman for no good reason. And she said her bugbear with Linda is that she was making a joke out of her husband, because her husband, Bud, wrote a book and Linda was like the main witness to alien abduction and the proof of it. And Carol was like, you're making a joke out of him. So what Carol did was publish an article in the news basically disputing everything in her husband's book and discrediting it. And then I believe he left her and their marriage broke down. But she blames Linda for making a joke out of him. She made the biggest joke out of him she possibly could. And said it was for his own good. If you felt that way, take him to the side and say it. Don't write an article about him behind his back and let him be humiliated in front of all these people who actually respected him.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think that Linda liked to embellish? Like, do you believe all of her story, or you think...
No, I do believe Linda loved the camera, and I do believe she liked to embellish, but... The crux of it was true. I don't know. It's really... I would love for you to watch it and see what you think, because I thought it was quite a good documentary. But for me, it would... Even whether Linda's story was fully true or fully false, I think it was overshadowed by this Carol side story.
Yeah.
That just completely made you think, what is your problem? And that's not just because I believe in aliens. It's not. She just was so unlike hellbent. Every time she came on the camera and she was just looking at the videos of Linda, her face, I can't even do it. It was so sour. And I just thought to myself, you need to get over this for your own good. Like, come on, like, get over it. Like, it's done. You've lost your husband. But you lost your husband.
Yeah.
You wrote the article. It's not Linda doing this. It's you. You're the problem. It's you, Carol. Honestly, like, it was really bizarre. But the bit that I really didn't understand was, you're saying this hypnosis isn't true.
And then
and
tried
that
it and it
bud's
worked.
leading them down this place, and you tried it and it worked.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, well, Linda's isn't true because she didn't react like the other people. So are you saying the other people's true, but then you're saying it's not? Her story, I found much more conflicting, and I feel like she had a personal stake in it, where she didn't like this woman who was objectively better looking than her.
And she was gonna go with
Yeah,
that.
like she was no, not better looking, because that is subjective, but she was glamorous.
Yeah.
She loved the camera. She was getting a lot of attention. Her and Bud were working together. She was phoning Bud up when she was crying and having bad dreams about the experience, but he was someone she could talk to.
Yeah.
And I think as a wife, Carol found that very hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So she went on a mission to dig and discredit Linda, and Bud got caught in the crossfire, which then completely tumbled the whole marriage down, because without discrediting Bud, she couldn't discredit Linda, and she was so hell-bent on that she ruined her whole marriage to prove a point.
Yeah, her worst fear happened as a result of her actions.
Yeah.
Not
And then
anything
she'll say, like, I was protecting him, but you made the biggest fool out of him you could. You could have taken him to the side and been like, look, I think Linda's conning you.
Yeah.
And let him deal with that. But
You were protecting
his whole work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was very bizarre that side story's in there. And at the beginning, so going back to the beginning where Linda's kind of talking about her experience, Carol comes in and it's sort of flicking between the two.
Yeah.
Talking to the camera in monologues, and Linda's going over her experience, and then Carol comes on and says, like, yeah, I was a skeptic, blah, blah, blah. And then Linda says Carol's a bitch. And then it starts playing Marilyn Manson, Your Own Personal Jesus, and sort of goes into it. So it's like, really...
What am I watching?
I enjoyed that creative choice, but I thought I was in this for the aliens. But now I'm in it for, like, why does Linda and Carol hate each other?
Get them in the sumo suits and let's have it.
But then I read something yesterday, because I watched it a couple of weeks back, and obviously having to talk about it today, I needed to remember the names of the people in it. So I looked up an article, and apparently Linda is actually suing Netflix because she didn't like something about the documentary. I can't remember what, but yeah, she wasn't happy with... I don't know if it's because they got Carol in there.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
She was like, why did you contact her? Why did
I told
let her
you
have her
she's a
say?"
bitch.
Yeah. But yeah, that was Alien Abduction in Manhattan, I believe it's called. So give it a watch, see what you think. It's quite a bit of a drama story along with an alien abduction. So it's got everything that I enjoy.
It's got it all.
All right. On that note, yeah, that's the end of the episode. So if you like it, give it a like. And if you got to this point, despite our rambling,
Congrats.
Well done to start with, but comment an alien emoji, spaceship related emoji down below of your choice.
And a cow.
And a cow.
Put a cow in it.
Yeah, a cow and an alien. And obviously subscribe to the... You know what to do.
You know the story.
Yeah, everyone always says it. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. Like it if you like the video. And we will see you next time for some more spooky and kooky content.
See you later.
See you later.
Spooky and kooky, mystery and wonder. Feel the magic under. Spooky and kooky.